So we have made it to Castle Morne, and we're here to get a really big sword that casts a really unique buff. And by really big, I mean incredibly heavy. But it's a pretty strong buff, and it's worth it. So this entry courtyard here is a exercise in patience. One of the reasons I got that Wraith Calling Bell and Lyre near the lake was specifically for this area. There's a ton of enemies out here, and what you can do with the Wraith Calling Bell is you can draw them out one at a time and bring them in and kind of, guard counter them to death patiently. So yeah, there's a mix of the Misbegottens on the pile of corpses or whatever that is over there, as well as a couple of puppers over to the side. Yeah, just be patient, draw them out one at a time. When they come at you, guard counter them, and it's pretty overall straightforward to get through this area, if you're patient. Now, it's not the most exciting thing in the world to do, to come through and do this, but, it does work. And if you're kind of, getting used to the game and all that, it's kind of just good practice to kind of get into, to be cautious in a lot of these areas here. And there's kind of a little random soldier who is here. And I have played through this area, this is like my 5th or 6th playthrough of the game. I have never seen this happen, where a soldier is down here fighting a Misbegotten. So they've probably fallen down from the walls up above. This game still throws new things at you after all this time. It's kind of cool. We're just going to let them fight, though. We're going to continue working our way through the pack of Misbegotten here that are on top of the flaming garbage dump of humanity that they've kind of taken over and devoured here. So the Misbegotten here are kind of revolting, I guess. Not in like the disgusting sort of way. We're not the double meaning. We are revolting children from Matilda kind of song, if you've ever watched that musical on Netflix. Kids movie. But anyways, they're in revolution, that's a better way to put it, against the owners of the castle here. It's implied that they were the servants, which is kind of strange. The only one you ever see in kind of like a servant sort of scenario is Hugh in Round Table Holds. You wonder if that's kind of a common thing that we only see him as the one example of, but usually all these people would be, I don't know, blacksmiths or something like that in the keep, helping out, and then, one day they decided they had enough, and they're coming for everybody with, fire and fang and all that good stuff. So yeah, we are here to, well, maybe they have good reasons for revolting, but, we're going to try and keep the politics out of it and, well, just resort to murdering them all because it's good runes, it's good experience. They may have a very good cause, but we need to level up and get a magic sword. So there is one big guy at the top. And this is a guy, we fought one of these in the mines earlier. Not going to stance break him with a single guard counter, I don't think, so I kind of save up my stamp upwards cut for him and use that to take him out. As we're kind of going up the hill here, there's a few stragglers to clean up, can sneak up behind them, and guard counter the last guy here to take him out. Actually, 2 guys left. Guard counter both of them to take them out. Guard counters are fantastic in this area. They work very well against pretty much everyone here except the big dudes with the axes. And I think there's a pumpkin head over here as well that we'll take out in a little bit. Lots of flaming butterflies, smoldering butterflies on the corpse pile here. So I've been picking those up as well, just, to make more fire pots and all that we will be using probably eventually. There's a little raised area with a couple doggies. Make sure to go up there to get the smithing stone too, just for crafting purposes later. There's a resting pumpkin head. We can sneak up behind him and smack him in the butt with our sword and stance break him and take him out before he has a chance to react. Stealth is really good in this game. If you're patient and you sneak up on people, it makes a lot of fights that can be a little bit tricky. Very, very straightforward. So after taking him out, we are going to try and snake our way through the castle here. You can climb up on top of the, pile of bodies, work your way around, and there's an entrance to a little room here. I always get a lot of these little areas in the game confused. I'm never sure which ones have enemies in them and which ones don't. There's a lot of places that look like this in Stormveil Castle as well. There's a sword in here, Claymore. Forget if it's a Greatsword or a Colossal Sword. It's a sword. But we already got one, and it's already upgraded. So a couple of guys out here attacking a guard. This is another good place to remember to be patient. I shouldn't have rushed in like that. That was dumb. I should have let them fight each other a little bit and then, resorted to guard counters to take them out one at a time. Hashtag foreshadowing. This is a cool area, and that you see this conflict going on, this kind of these Misbegotten in revolt against the soldiers here. And you can kind of take advantage of the chaos here. If these guys were all against you, this would maybe be kind of overwhelming. But because they're fighting each other, you can kind of come in here and wreck up the joint. Again, this is me kind of getting impatient here. I should really be, chucking a fire pot into the group of those guys there and just taking them all out with one big bomb. But yeah, impatience is starting to trickle into me, and I'm just like, let's kind of get through this area quickly. Couple guys down the hallway. Again, Wraith calling Bell to draw one out at a time so that you can guard counter him and take him out easily. Essentially takes enemies that can be a little bit tricky and makes them a zero threat thing to kind of do that bait them out and guard counter them tactic. And continuing forward, we go up a ladder, and then we drop down, and this little fella is gonna run up at us and bounce off our shield pathetically, and we will take him out. And then there's a couple of archers up on a narrow walkway. And I've mentioned a couple of times about impatience being a problem. I was just trying to kind of get through this area quickly and get to the goodie at the end here. And these archers up on this narrow walkway that are coming up here, they're a problem. So, I start hitting him with the Wraith Calling Bell, which is working well. I mean, I should be able to just take these guys out. It has such good tracking. I should be able to take them out either with that or with, fire pots. But instead, I get up on this narrow walkway and fucking gravity. I get knocked off by them and I die. Don't get impatient. Be better than me. Yeah, not the best. And here's the thing. I kind of own Castle Morne. Like, I think I had a little bit of an issue with the boss at the end in my first playthrough. But aside from that, I usually do really good with this kind of cautious playthrough style here. And right now, I'm a little bit salty that I died, because I almost never die in Castle Morne. You know, the dark side taking me over is just like, just run through and get my... I'm not going to do all that, you know, baiting these guys out. I'm just going to charge in and start killing these guys because, you know, that cautious stuff. I'm a god of war. And I'm going to just, you know, wreck up the joint here. This game, you really should be a little bit humble about it. You know, I'm not going to do anything too bad right away. But we'll get to another bad thing in a little bit here. Yeah, we took out the big guy pretty easily. And now, you know, again, it's like there's a few stragglers that are up here. No big deal. They're just, you know, the standard sort of people here. They're not particularly hard. So kind of going through and just trying to rush through these guys and make it back to my runes. And there's like a little bit of a thing where I kind of get ganged up on here by these two guys, since I've kind of gotten impatient and, you know, take a little bit of damage here. And I don't think I was really paying that much attention to the amount of damage I took, because I really should flask here. I really should cast a heal spell here. But again, I'm kind of blinded by my saltiness over the fact that those archers knocked me off the ledge on a walkway. And again, I rush into these guys, which I said was a bad idea the first time I went there. And another death in Castle Morne. Very shameful. I feel bad. But I am now properly chastised and realize patience is the way. So back up to the top of the elevator and slowly, patiently baiting these guys out one at a time with the Wraith Calling Bell, and, you know, doing my best not to get murdered. Now, I kind of messed up a little bit on the first guy there, but at least I remembered to heal. And he's the only one that's actually a threat out of all these guys, really, for the most part. But patience, bait him out one at a time, guard counter him to death, in the zero risk way of going about this. And this time when I get to this group, I kind of do the smart thing and I just hurl a bomb at them, just to take them all out at once. I really have been forgetting to use the fire pots a lot here. They're great. Remember that you have them and use them. And I also realized I never actually equipped the sword seal that I had picked up going up the ladder here. And that's going to help me do a lot more damage against these guys, as well as give me a little bit of added toughness as well. We're still at low enough vigor that the bonus vigor is offsetting the bonus damage we take here. Note that things like the fire pots, they actually scale with strength. So, like, I didn't one-shot those Misbegotten that were up there with fire pots. But, you know, I'll do a little bit more damage with fire pots now because I've got that sword seal up there. So, I'm up in the spot where I had the gravity death before. My runes are long since gone because, you know, I had the one shot earlier. But I'm going to be a little bit more patient this time. I'm going to do better. And I'm just going to take these guys out with, we're going to Elden Ring these guys to death because it's a bell and you ring it. That's kind of what you do. They get really lucky and one of those guys with wings falls. How a guy with wings falls to death, I mean, it's a great mystery, but we will take it. There's another area here with Misbegotten fighting guards. We're going to charge through that. There's an NPC on the far side of it that we want to talk to. But we are going to be properly cautious and use our resources to take these guys out. So we're chucking fire pots in to the crowd here. You'll note that now that I've got the, the sword seal up, it actually killed the Misbegotten in that crowd on the first hit there. Although maybe they had some damage from the soldiers. I don't know. Point is, the Misbegotten that were fighting the soldiers died in one shot. And that's really kind of the important thing here. Kind of letting these two guys gut it out a little bit. The archer is the harder of these two guys, so I just kind of use the Wraith Calling Bell to kind of take him out, but the soldier does it for me anyways. Soldier's looking good with a couple feathers sticking out of him though, nice and stylish. But we're going to keep running around the side of this little tower up here. Hopefully not die to gravity as we go up this kind of like precarious staircase that I always am worried that there's going to be a soldier on it or something like that. Seems like the sort of thing Miyazaki would do. We're going to go talk to this guy at the top. He's the guy who we found his daughter on the way into the Weeping Peninsula. So we're going to deliver a letter to him. And I don't know if you have to talk to this guy to trigger it, but he's available as an NPC summon for the boss here. The boss here can be awful. And it's definitely one of the ones that I recommend using an NPC summon for, just to take some of the heat off you, because it is a hyper-aggressive boss, and having both an NPC summon and a Spirit Dash against it is very helpful. So I think talking to him unlocks the ability to Spirit Summon him by the boss door, but I'm not positive about that. And if we backtrack a little bit and drop down, we'll find our way to a Site of Grace. And we can rest there for a moment, and finally we've made it past like the initial swath of unfortunate deaths that I've had here. So looking over the side of the building here as I come down, there's a purple object. We pick that up. It's a stone sword key. Always nice to grab those. And then dropping down, there's not a ton more interesting treasure here until we get to the end boss. There's like a few kind of questionably useful objects. I think there's a talisman and a whip. But mostly going to be running through the areas here and doing a couple of drop-down puzzles until we get to the boss. But it's a much more of the same for a lot of these things, where it's draw out draw out enemies one at a time if you can with the Wraith Calling Bell, kill them with a guard counter. The bigger guys, we're gonna stamp upwards, cut them to death when we run into them. There are slimes in this area, these little slow motion things. They are never worth killing in this game. They have really good defenses. Just run by them. When you run into the scaly guy up here, stamp upwards, cut twice, will break his stance, and then you can just crit him to take him out. The tower up here has one of those, I think it's one of the crappy talismans. I forget. It might be successive attacks do more damage. Is that what this one is? Or no, it's not successive attacks. It's like when you, yeah, Twin Blade Talisman. Successive attacks does more damage, is actually pretty decent. This one is like the last attack of a full attack chain, I think, does more damage. Which is kind of dumb, because ideally you want to be killing enemies before you get to the last hit of an attack chain. So it's not really good. But continue dropping down here. There's a lot of like drop down puzzles in Castle Morne here. So we're dropping down these cliffs, and eventually we're going to get down to a bit of a tricky kind of drop down on beams sort of puzzle. Just make sure you're kind of well lined up with the center of the beam, and you should be able to drop down and hit it pretty easily. Now, at the bottom of this tower, there is a ton of rats. Oh, make sure to get the smithing stone too, because those are still pretty rare at this stage here. But we're going to drop down these beams, and I think there's like 5 or 6 rats here. So just get out of this building as fast as you can, and when they start charging at you, yeah, just try and clean them up one at a time. I didn't actually aggro them all at once, which is kind of nice. But we can just chop them to bits and take what's left inside the little area here. One Misbegotten guy in there as well. And there we get the whip. I've never done the whip build in this game. There's something about them that I remember reading that sounded bad. I think it's that you can't crit with them. Like, just imagine the animation of, like, trying to stab someone with your whip when you've, like, stance broken them. I think that's what it is. But I really like stance breaking people. It's satisfying. The whole guard counter, kerthonk, stab someone through the chest. It's a nice feel to it, and giving that up to use just a whip it doesn't seem good. We can see the fog door down there, the little golden fog gate down there. There are a couple of Misbegotten up on this tower right here, though. We got a sleeping big boy. We'll take out with stamp. And then we have one of the banes of my existence, the archer boy here. And he falls down. This fall is not enough to kill him, though. Dropping down the tower, gonna kind of look for him. I don't want to aggro the spirit jellyfish here. I fail miserably, and this just goes bad. The spirit jellyfish, they actually aren't too terrible. I think they just do a little bit of poison damage, something like that. But it was just, again, I kind of got lazy with attacking that guy, and now he's kind of, you know, like I said, these archers are the bane of my existence. in Castle Morne. But this guy isn't going to kill us. We're not going to let that happen. Always sneak around the backs of towers, by the way, for like hidden little things like that, little somber smithing stone. Not that I need that. Have to be very careful here in the water. There is a instant death ledge that you can kind of barely see. I'm kind of hoping this guy hops off it accidentally. And he does. Yay, gravity to the rescue instead of gravity to the death of us. At this point, I kind of realized I kind of really screwed that up. Wasted a lot of resources right before the boss. So I'm actually just going to run back and have a little rest here and see if we can do that better. Because we want to be going in with as much of a full tank as we can for this guy. So after our nice, relaxing little rest, we're going to go and do this much, much better. Or at least we're going to try and do this much, much better by avoiding it altogether and dropping off the bridge and going straight for the boss. So close to the little fog door here, look around, and eventually you'll see the gold summon sign to bring Edgar into the fray here. Going to make sure I have the sword seal on. We are going to start doing some nice little buffs now. Now for this boss, I am going to use the Morning Star. We are going to try and kill him with status effect buildup. So what we're going to do is, after Edgar's out here, we're going to drink our Flask of Wondrous Physic, and we're going to coat our bleed weapon with even more bleed from Bloodflame Blade. And if you don't have Bloodflame Blade, Blood Grease works fine too. So we're going to step through the gate, summon our wolves, and we're going to be beset upon by a Leonine Misbegotten. He is super, super aggressive. So having Edgar here and the wolves helps out a lot. We are going to kind of L2 him to death. So Wild Strikes, you hold down L2, and you just kind of advance swinging this forward. And it's really good for kind of building up status, build up against these guys. And since he's kind of engaged with everybody here, we can kind of just whack away with Wild Strikes while everyone else is kind of holding aggro on him. And when you hold R2 down, while you're holding L2 down, you do that follow-up attack that's really heavy. And we get the Grafted Blade Greatsword for our efforts. And the Grafted Blade Greatsword is the heaviest wand in the game. And by that what I mean is, I never actually attack with that weapon. I two-hand it and use its Ash of War. And what that's good for is it buffs every single one of your attributes by 5 for a minute. It just makes us a better person all around. But it's heavy as fuck. So you need like the Strength Knot tier and the Radagon Sword Seal, or at least this character does, just to be able to two-hand it to use the Ash of War. So our good buddy D, when we helped him out with that death root earlier, he told us about a portal in this area. So we kind of run by this church, and eventually we will find this portal in the bushes. It shows up on your map. If you don't know exactly where it is, there's a red mark on your map to take you to it. So you can touch this portal, and it will warp you way ahead in the game to the wonderful, blessed region of Caelid. And we are in Grail's Dragonbarrow, which is a sub-region of Caelid. We're going to run in and open this door and immediately rest at this site of grace, because this place is full of death for us. There is a guy here. You could see him when I walked in. Not the guy with the axe. There's a guy at the back of the temple. He's one of the coolest bosses in the game eventually, but he's friendly right now. You can talk to him, start handing in death root for a kind of quest line with him. It's not really helpful for me to do so until I have about like 3 death root to turn in. I think that's when he gives you the first regen spell you can get. So I usually wait up until I've got 3 to actually talk to him. But what we're going to do here is we are going to run through on Torrent past a bunch of content that is able to eradicate us with nary a thought. So we're heading kind of to the south here towards this bridge. There's another site of grace there. And there's a dragon on this bridge. He can kill us quite easily. And Grail's Dragon Barrow, this whole area, it's not quite endgame content, but it's, I would say, latter half of the game content in terms of difficulty. You're meant to come here, you know, fairly later in the game relative to where we're at right now. It's some tricky business. You know, certainly after you've done like Liurnia of the Lakes, I think it's probably pretty close to the difficulty of Leyendell, I would say. So a lot of people consider running through and grabbing stuff in this area of the game to be a little bit cheesy. But the game teleports you here to do this sort of stuff. Why else would it teleport you here if not to get some goodies from here? I'm not actually going to do the stuff in this playthrough that people consider cheesy. I am perfectly okay with it, mind you. I almost always do this stuff. I just felt like not doing it for a change. But we rode up a spirit spring, and that brings us to this castle with a giant sleeping dragon in front of it. So going to head up to the fort and tag the Site of Grace outside of it. Now, if you watch my Bad at Elden Ring build video, I actually show in that, it's running through a background of one of the portions there, how to run through this fort and grab Radagon's Source Seal, which is a better version of Radagon's Scar Seal that we're wearing right now. So you can run through that fort if you want and get plus $5 to all your attributes instead of plus 3 for taking even more damage in return. So early in the game, that talisman's great. Later in the game, the damage you take is a detriment. Then over here, there's a sleeping dragon. You can attack his tail freely and kill him with bleed buildup. For a ton of runes. You eat a gold pickled foul foot right before he dies, and you gain like 5 to 10 levels. But that's kind of just showing you where that stuff is if you feel like doing it. At the end there, I teleported back down to Seofa River, where we will pick up next time, gathering upgrade materials for Lutel the Headless, now that we can cast him with the sword that we picked up down in Castle Morne. So hopefully this was helpful or enjoyable to watch. If it was, like, subscribe, and feel free to comment away. Thanks for listening.